Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome our witnesses who are with us and also joining us virtually. And I want to thank you and your staff for the work that they have done on pulling this hearing together. People are truly spending more time on the internet than ever before. And many times this is through work or school or just simply connecting with family and friends. But the fraudsters are aware of this, and they are wise to how people are on the internet and where they are vulnerable. And we continue to see this play out many times. Ms. Patton, I know you and your group see quite a bit of it. Even in the earliest days of the pandemic, it was difficult for people to get accurate information about the nature of the virus, how severe it was, where it started, how it spreads. The disinformation took on a life of its own, becoming essentially a media pathogen. It's no surprise that when PPE items and household cleaners were out when you went to the grocery store or the big box, that buyers flocked to the internet to get what they needed. Tennessee has taken the lead in cracking down on some of the most high-profile scandals in this space. In the first consumer action brought by any state attorney general's office in response to COVID-19, Tennessee shut down a hoarding and price gouging practice that deprived rural East Tennessee and eastern Kentucky of hand sanitizer and other essential cleaning supplies. Another Tennessee company falsely claimed that its products could protect surfaces from COVID-19 for 90 days. They falsely claimed that their products were FDA and EPA approved and falsely implied that it was being used by companies like McDonald's and Panda Express. The Attorney General's office immediately launched an investigation. The company settled, paid their fine, and promised to stop making false and misleading claims. Individual consumers weren't the only victims of scam artists. Our federal government has been defrauded in countless instances. The Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, has saved thousands of small businesses and kept hundreds of thousands of people on the payroll when the economy came to a standstill. However, according to a report issued by the Small Business Administration's Office of Inspector General, nearly 55,000 loans were made to potentially ineligible businesses, totaling more than $7 billion. While I know we're all ready for COVID to be over, it's important that we remain vigilant during this next and hopefully last phase of the virus, and that soon we're all going to see things return to normal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find it so interesting. Section 230 comes up in so many different arenas. So thank you all for that. Mr. Rhodes, I want to come to you first. I appreciate your comment about pandemic profiteers and thought that was an artful term and really a very fitting way to kind of couch some of what we've seen taking place online. And we know this wasn't, pardon me, our first pandemic. It will not be the last. And so education, consumer education, is a big part of this responsibility. So I wish you would talk for just a minute about how you all as a corporate entity pardon me, view your responsibility to educate people on how to detect something that is an actual real item, authentic, and something that's a fake. Mr.
Thank you.
Rhodes? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, Ranking Member Blackburn. So early on in the pandemic, our Chairman of the Board and CEO, Mike Roman, said 3M has a unique responsibility to respond to the pandemic from all angles as a leading supplier of personal protective equipment, including N95 respirators. Yeah. We have taken that responsibility and those words to heart, and that includes helping to do what we can to ensure that brave frontline workers get genuine products at a fair price. And part of that is educating, both the public and procurement officials as to what we're seeing in the marketplace, what we're going after by way of frauds and scams and counterfeits and the like. So, part of our activities have involved not only putting information on our website, we've posted tips on how to spot fraudulent offers, typically characterized by get the money up front and then disappear before the buyer realizes there's no product. Those involve upfront payments into escrow that the seller pays into, the buyer pays into and the seller can access, and other schemes like that.
Sir, I want to interrupt you right there. So you are conducting education to both the individual consumer and also to purchasing agents. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
okay.
we have worked with state and federal purchasing agents too.
Yeah, my time is limited. I want to move on. Okay, so Mr. Kaufman, when you all are trying to go through your enforcement, what kind of participation are you getting from the online marketplace? From vendors that have third parties that are selling?
So answer would be twofold. When we see bad claims, in addition to reaching out to the party that's involved in the bad claims, we are also contacting the platforms to make sure that they're aware that there's bad activity on their platform.
And do they respond appropriately?
They have responded appropriately, but I wish they would respond more without being invited to respond by the FTC.
Okay, do they come to you with due diligence or information on their own? We think we have someone who needs to be investigated.
We get occasional referrals from platforms and from companies as well.
Okay, all right. And Professor Kovacic, I want to come to you on this. I know you're going to tell me you need more budget and staff. That's going to be a part of your answer. And Mr. Kaufman, to you. When we look at what the FTC is doing, one of the things that we have discussed for a couple of years now is the need to scale enforcement. So as you look at this, other than budget and agents, what kind of authorities do you need? And Mr. Kaufman, you first, and then Professor Kovacic.
So certainly the most pressing issue right now is restoring our 13B authority. Okay. Without that authority, it is a huge blow to the FTC. And there are other areas where we could definitely use civil penalty authority, most notably data security and privacy violations. To be able to penalize first-time privacy violators would be a huge benefit for consumers and for the agency.
Okay. Professor?
I would echo Daniel's comments, put those on my list as well. I'd simply add, I would like to see the development of a comprehensive strategy that brings together the full community of law enforcement authorities to decide in a more collective way, what are we doing now and what do we have to do to be more effective? I think that would be very profitable, a way to make sure we got the full value for the additional expenditures.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.